Hey guys, welcome back to an episode of Off the Shelf. I'm Time HD, and this week we found off the shelf was...
There are those who will die for him.
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
There are those who will kill for him. Who is he? What does he want? Where did he come from? And can he be stopped? The Omen. If this is the truth, where does it end?
The Omen, released in 1976, directed by Richard Donner, starring Gregory Peck. This film is a horror mystery film and thriller as well. This film is obviously a classic, horror classic from the 70s. This film is about kind of the unraveling of the mystery of who the character that the entire franchise revolves around, Damien Thorne, who is prophesized, and as the mystery, spoilers for this 40-year-old film, is revealed to be the Antichrist, and then it is kind of a race to kill him so that the end of the world does not fall upon the world. So yeah, that's essentially the plot, is the mystery being unraveled and eventually the reveal of Damien being the Antichrist, and them trying to stop Damien from rising up in political power. But I thought that this film, even though this film is quite old, it is still very, very well made. I mean, I think the mystery is very well put together. I think the deaths are great. Obviously, the guy, fucking Final Destination, getting his head chopped off by a small little pane of glass and just rolling, that was fucking great. But, I mean, also, of course, the iconic scene, it's I did it for you! And, jumping off the building and hanging herself. I think that's probably the most iconic scene in the movie, maybe. I mean, maybe correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I feel like that's the scene I know. Out of all the scenes from The Omen, that's the only scene I knew was that scene. But overall, I do really like as I said, the mystery. I mean, obviously I know what The Omen was. I'd never seen it, but I knew that Damien was the Antichrist. It's I just knew what was going to happen. So even though the mystery was very well put together, and if I was watching this for the first time blind, I mean, I probably would be guessing and what's going on, what's happening, and it would be maybe not shocking, but it would be finally we were right moment at the end. But I'm he is the Antichrist, right? I already knew. And also, but I do kind of like the idea of this film of the modern Antichrist rising up in power and getting up in power and getting up in political power and taking over the world, or destroying the world, causing it to end, splitting people apart. I do like that idea, and I had seen their things, and it seems like the sequels unfortunately are not as good as the first one, which is a given for horror movie sequels. But I think honestly this film really did leave itself open for a sequel. I feel like it wanted a sequel, because I mean, you can't just leave it at that. What's Damien gonna do after that? What's he gonna do after that? And maybe without sequels, it would have left it more up to interpretation what would have happened afterwards, after the film ended and Damien got the power that he was prophesized to get. But I do really think I did find the film very, the whole dread of the idea of the Antichrist was, I think, very well handled and very well done. I did really like that part of it. So, you guys know this by now, and you guys know I love horror movies, you guys know it, but I've seen so many horror films to the point where, even especially older horror films, they don't scare me as much, right? I'm not really that scared by horror movies, but I will admit, I do like the atmosphere, as I said, I do like the dread, I do like the suspense of this film, I do like Damien himself and how, kind of eerie he is. I do like how deadpan he is in, a lot of scenes, and he does seem like there's something off with him. I do like that, but personally, I was not scared by it, but that's because, as you guys know, I've seen a lot of horror films. I've done this whole shebang, right? I've gone through all of it. I've seen a lot of horror movies, so they don't affect me like they might affect some other people. But I will say, if you've, not seen that many horror movies, I will say this movie is quite spooky. There's, spooky... I mean, obviously, for the time, I think it was a lot scarier than it is now, because we've seen a lot of worse things now, but still, it's still pretty eerie and still pretty thrilling, I'd say. I think I was quite thrilled throughout the film, even though I knew what was going to happen, because there's sequels with Damien in them, so I'm like, they're not going to kill Damien, right? I knew that was going to happen, but it's, like, suspenseful, like, what's going to happen to the dad? Is he going to die? Probably, but how? You know, like, what's going to happen? Is the Apostle of Satan, is she going to, you know, survive? Is she going to die? You know, like, what's going to happen? Like, it kept me guessing on the characters that I didn't know were going to live or die or not. And that's what I liked. It kept me guessing in still some parts that I didn't know about, and that's what I liked about it. Obviously, as I've heard said again, the sequels probably aren't as good as this one, but in a perfect world, maybe they would have been. But again, still, I did find this film quite thrilling and quite entertaining, which is still important. And now, would I recommend this film? I think I would. I mean, if you're a fan of horror, classic 70s horror, I think you'd definitely get a kick out of this one. I mean, if you like satanic type stuff, this is pretty satanic type horror stuff, you know? If you like kind of haunting type movies type like that, you know what I mean? Like movies like that, like religious horror, maybe you could call it. If you like that kind of stuff. Even then, if you're a horror fan, I think if you haven't seen this film already, you just should definitely watch it. It's an absolute classic, and it's quite important, in my opinion, to the history of horror, and I think definitely you should go watch it. And yeah, I would recommend it. And with that being said, I think I'd rate this film an 8 out of 10, an absolute classic that I would absolutely recommend for any fans of horror who have not already seen it. And, yeah. Think I've said all I need to say. Think I've said in peace. So guys, hope you'll like this video. Share with friends, subscribe, turn notifications on, comment down below how much you liked it. And I've been Runtime HD. Off to hail Satan. Yeah. And oh, by the way, guys, just to let you know, that's a joke. I don't want any controversy now. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's... I don't know. Funny times. So, like, Satan, he's a guy. Well, is he? No, he's not a guy. He's Satan.
Talking about